Have you ever stopped to wonder who really makes the medicines we all rely on? You might have a picture in your head of a giant lab at a big pharma company, but you know what? That picture is changing, and it's changing fast. Today, we're going to crack open a JP Morgan report that shines a light on this massive, kind of hidden industry, a secret engine, really, that is completely transforming the world of medicine.
So when you think about it, you probably imagine this massive, shiny lab, right? Owned by one of the huge pharmaceutical names we all know. But what if I told you that's not really the whole story anymore? The real answer, the folks who handle the incredibly complex chemistry and the giant production runs, well, it's way more surprising and honestly a lot more interesting than you think.
Because behind all those big brand names, there is a colossal global market that powers everything from behind the scenes. And when I say colossal, I mean it. We're talking about a $213 billion industry, and it is growing like crazy. This, my friends, is the world of the CRDMO, and it is the secret engine that makes modern medicine possible.
So what on earth is a CRDMO? I know, the name is a total mouthful. Contract Research, Development, and Manufacturing Organization. But the idea is actually super simple. Think of it like this. If a new drug is a blockbuster movie, the big pharma company is the studio. You know, the one with its name on the poster. But the CRDMO, they're the expert film crew. They're the special effects wizards, the stunt coordinators. They handle all the critical, super technical work. From the earliest research all the way to manufacturing millions of doses. They are the specialists for hire.
And, this isn't just a small trend. This is a massive, fundamental shift in how things are done. We're seeing the big pharmaceutical giants increasingly just handing over the keys to the factory. This is pharma's big outsourcing boom. So just how big is this shift? Well, get this. Right now, data from Frost & Sullivan shows that almost a third, 32%, of all pharmaceutical R&D is already outsourced to companies like CRDMOs. That is a huge slice of the pie. But believe it or not, that's just where we are today. The trend is only getting stronger. Look ahead to 2029, and that number is expected to jump to 38%. The direction of travel is crystal clear. More and more of the actual science and manufacturing of our medicine is moving out of the big pharma labs and into the hands of these highly specialized partners. So the big question is why? Why is this all happening? Well, the JP Morgan report boils it down to three main reasons. First, it's just cheaper and more efficient. Second, it gives these pharma companies instant access to incredible technology and expertise they might not have in-house. And finally, it lets them do what they do best, focus on discovering new drugs and then marketing the heck out of them. Now, whenever you have a market this huge and growing this fast, you know what happens next, right? Competition. And this outsourcing boom has kicked off a really fierce global race. At the absolute heart of that race, as this report lays out, is a battle for dominance between two titans, India and China. For years, let's be honest, China has been the undisputed champion in this space. They've got the massive scale, incredible speed, and just deep, deep expertise. But India is coming up fast and is quickly becoming the new preferred partner. Why? Well, the report points to some key advantages for India. We're talking stronger regulatory compliance, better protection for intellectual property, and more stable labor costs. And the numbers, they totally back this story up. The global CRDMO market is growing at a really healthy 9% a year. But India's market, it's blasting ahead at 13%. So India isn't just growing with the market, it is actively taking a bigger and bigger piece of this whole global pie. A huge factor driving India's success right now is something called the China Plus One strategy. You see, with all the geopolitical tensions and supply chain scares lately, global pharma companies are getting nervous about having all their eggs in one basket. They're actively looking for a reliable second manufacturing hub outside of China. And this whole strategic move, this de-risking, is a massive tailwind for Indian firms who are just seeing a flood of new projects coming their way. But here's the thing. This race, it isn't just about making today's medicines a little cheaper or a little faster. No, the real grand prize is mastering the science to produce the medicines of tomorrow. And that brings us to the really exciting cutting-edge stuff, the rise of what are called novel modalities. Okay, novel modalities sounds super technical. I get it. But really, it's just a fancy term for the absolute future of medicine. We're talking about treatments that are a whole different ballgame from your standard pill. This is stuff like cell and gene therapies, antibody-drug conjugates, or ADCs, and oligonucleotides. You can think of these as the super smart, highly targeted weapons in the future fight against all kinds of diseases. And the growth in these areas is, well, it's just explosive.
The market for cell and gene therapy is expanding at an absolutely staggering 40% a year. For ADCs, it's 28%. For these CRDMO companies, figuring out how to manufacture these incredibly complex therapies, that is the key to winning the future. Period. So, as you'd probably guess, the leading Indian CRDMOs are placing some huge bets on these new frontiers. You've got Divi's labs targeting GLP-1s, yep, the same class of drugs famous for those new weight loss treatments. Cohance is all in on ADCs and oligos. Meanwhile, you have Loris and Piramel investing heavily in things like gene therapy and bioconjugates. It's like a high-stakes chess match for the future of medicine. Okay, so how are these companies actually trying to win? The JP Morgan report spotlights a couple of key players that are basically perfect case studies in strategy. And just so we're all clear, we're looking at these to understand the trends we've been talking about. This is absolutely not investment advice. The report zeroes in on two companies that really represent two completely different ways to win this race. First, you've got Divi's laboratories. They're a giant, focused on building everything themselves, brick by brick, and just mastering the chemistry. Then you've got Cohance Lifesciences. They're more of a tech-focused player that's aggressively buying other companies to get expertise in those cutting-edge fields, like ADCs. On Divi's, the JP Morgan report is pretty blunt. They say its scale, compliance, and innovation make it the strongest and most resilient player in the space. Basically, they see Divi's as the reliable, steady, industrial titan of this industry. But then you look at Cohance, and it's a totally different story. It's all about speed and high-tech growth. The report calls them a tech-driven CDMO, well-placed to scale revenue to $1 billion by FY30. Their whole game is to become the go-to expert in the newest, most complicated stuff out there. So these two companies just perfectly illustrate the different playbooks for winning in this market. You can be the organic titan like Divi's, building everything meticulously from the ground up, or you can be the tech acquirer like Cohance, strategically buying your way to the future faster. And both are totally valid paths to the top. Okay, let's zoom back out for the big picture. The opportunity here is clearly enormous, right? But as the JP Morgan report is very careful to point out, this high-stakes game is definitely not a walk in the park. It comes with some real risks. The report flags 4 big ones to think about. First, scaling up these new, super complex technologies is incredibly hard. A delay can ripple through everything. Second, there's always intense pricing pressure from competitors around the world. Third, a single failed regulatory inspection can literally halt production, which is a huge threat. And finally, because the business is based on individual projects, earnings can swing wildly from one quarter to the next. So what's the bottom line in all of this? The real takeaway from the JP Morgan report is this. We are witnessing a fundamental rewiring of the entire global healthcare supply chain. This isn't just a business trend, this is a deep structural shift that's going to define how our medicines get made for decades to come. Which leaves us with one final really fascinating question to think about. As the whole process of making medicine gets more specialized and outsourced, who's going to hold the real power in the end? Will it be the big pharma companies with the famous brand names and the marketing muscle? Or will it be the behind-the-scenes manufacturing titans who are the only ones who actually know how to make the next generation of life-saving drugs?